While characters like Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck remain some of the most iconic and recognizable creations of all time, in the late 70s and early 80s, a group of characters had skyrocketed to stardom. The Muppets, through their variety show and movies, quickly became one of the biggest IPs in the world by appealing to children and adults alike. And while their designs are iconic within themselves, the man behind them was the key to their success. Creating an empire by reinvigorating puppeteering and bringing unmatchable comedy and imagination through projects like Sesame Street, The Muppets, Fraggle Rock, and Dark Crystal, Jim Henson had made a name for himself in ways only few have come close to achieving. At the same time, then CEO Michael Eisner was in the process of developing his Disney Decade, a stretch of time he hoped would expand Disney's reach exponentially in the late 80s and early 90s, and one of his targets was acquiring the Muppets from Jim Henson. What was planned to be a $150 million purchase would have brought the characters to Disney parks through its own land, a ride, and a 4D film, but with Henson's untimely death in 1989, the deal would fall through and push the acquisition off for 15 years. And while only a fraction of their initial plans, the attraction that would come to Disney MGM Studios in Disneyland would prove to be one of the most iconic and boundary-pushing 4D films of all time. And although it has continued to be a fan favorite, recent plans may have put the Muppets' presence at Disney parks in jeopardy. Welcome back to another episode of Theme Park Lore, where today we'll be breaking down the history, lore, and uncertain future of Muppet Vision 3D.
Welcome to Muppet Vision 3D.
Jim Henson's Muppet Vision 3D. Get a taste for unique fun that bubbles over with excitement. It's a sensation that'll blow you away and shower you with humor.
Rockets away!
For the finest in wildly wacky, explosive entertainment, Jim Henson's Muppet Vision 3D. We surrender! We surrender! Only at the Disney MGM Studios theme park.
Starring moi!
As Michael Eisner joined Disney in 1984, one of his biggest goals was to expand the company into the worldwide leader of the theme park market. After seeing plans for a Hollywood Pavilion expansion for Epcot anchored by the Great Movie Ride, Eisner would challenge Imagineers to instead develop the idea into a brand new theme park. Opening in 1989, Disney MGM Studios was meant to take guests into the world of movie making with working sound stages and production studios, a backlot tour, and its only real attraction, the Great Movie Ride. The dark ride took riders through the worlds of classic films like Wizard of Oz and The Raiders of the Lost Ark by incorporating both audio animatronics and live actors. And while it was loved by fans, the attraction was far from an e-ticket that would drive guests to choose MGM Studios over something like Epcot or its competitor Universal Studios Florida, which would open nearby in 1990, offering way more movie-based attractions. While the park is now home to incredible rides like Tower of Terror and Rise of the Resistance, MGM Studios opened with a real lack of things to do, causing Imagineers to rush to the drawing board to expand the park's offerings. Around the same time, Muppet creator Jim Henson began talks with Disney to sell his characters to the company. While Henson had proven himself to be one of the most inventive and creative people in the entertainment industry through his work on Sesame Street and The Muppets, in the later part of his career he would set out to explore darker and more adult themes with projects like The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. Now cult classics, both films underperformed in the box office and were initially met with mixed critical reviews, leading to a difficult period for Henson. While he was still directing and puppeteering on his projects, Henson also had to be in tune with the financial side of things, and although his projects continued to push the boundaries of what puppeteering and children's programs should be, the projects also carried enormous costs. Wanting to focus more on the creative side of his projects, Henson would enter negotiations with Michael Eisner to sell the Muppets to Disney for a reported $150 million in 1989. With the sale, Disney would own a backlog of projects like The Muppet Movie, The Muppet Show, and Muppet Babies, with their intention to develop new shows and films through a 15-year creative consultancy with Henson himself, as well as bring the characters to Disney parks. Initially, the plan was to bring the Muppets to Hollywood Studios through an entirely new area. Taking over what is now the Grand Avenue, the Muppet Studios land would have had a Gonzo pizza parlor, a Hard Rock Cafe spoof that would have featured props from the past Muppet productions, and the Great Muppet Movie Ride, a dark ride that would take guests through a parody of movie history in a way that only the Muppets could. All of this would have been anchored by the then already in production Muppet Vision 3D, directed by Henson himself, but both the land and the acquisition would come to a halt when Jim Henson unexpectedly passed away on May 16, 1990 at the age of 53. While the deal would fall apart after his death, Muppet Vision had already been filmed and was nearing completion, leading to the only large format Muppet attraction at a Disney park to this day. Taking guests into a recreation of the Muppet Theater, the attraction's name is really a misnomer, with the film being another addition to Disney's 4D film repertoire, having launched attractions like Captain EO and later It's Tough to Be a Bug. Like most of Henson's projects, Muppet Vision would be an avenue for him to test and invent new technologies, with the attraction's main character representing what Henson thought would be the future of puppeteering. While he doesn't really hold up to today's standards when looking at the rest of the ride film, Henson's first CGI creation, Waldo C. Graphic, is really a puppeteered character that utilized cutting-edge motion capture technology. As demonstrated on an episode of the Jim Henson Hour, Waldo's body is controlled through a specially made Muppet that allows the puppeteer to see a low-resolution version of Waldo in real time.
Very impressive. But I do feel compelled, with all due respect, to point out that the picture of you still looks pretty terrible.
The image you see on the screen is called a low-resolution picture. It's not really that good, but it's about the best the computer can do in real time.
But you see, what we can do is we can take this crummy-looking low-resolution picture and we can run it through yet another computer into high resolution, and it comes out stunningly beautiful like this. Come on, Jojo.
Incorporating new technologies, animatronics, live actors, and a ride film from the peak of his creative output, Muppet Vision 3D was Henson's last project he completed before he passed away and continues to be one of the best ways to immerse yourself in one of his worlds. Located in the Grand Avenue area of Hollywood Studios and formerly the Hollywood Land area of California Adventure, guests enter the attraction through the Muppet production offices before making their way into Studio 3D. Entering a holding room, the space is decorated to look like a storage room for props like costumes, inventions, and memorabilia. As guests wait to be let into the theater, a pre-show plays on sets of interconnected televisions that are suspended from the ceiling. Featuring Scooter trying to wrangle everyone for the show, the video occasionally splits with characters moving in between each of the TVs. Taking their seats, riders are greeted by audio animatronics of Stalter and Waldorf, who heckle the show from their opera box. Then, being instructed to put on your 3D glasses, animatronic figures of Nicky Napoleon and its Emperor Penguins rise in front of the curtain to play an overture of the Muppet Show theme. As the camera lifts, the camera pans to a door with the words 3D pushing out towards the audience, revealing Gonzo pushing the logo around with a pole. Being greeted by Kermit, guests are taken on a tour of the facility and are told they will be introduced to the technology behind Muppet Vision 3D. After checking in with an animatronic of the Swedish chef who is operating the projector in the back of the theater, Kermit tells riders the various performances that are planned for the show before being assured that they will not stoop to any cheap 3D tricks. After stooping to 3D tricks, Fozzie gets heckled by Stalter and Waldorf from their box before shooting the audience with water from a spraying flower. Making his way into Muppet Labs, Kermit introduces the audience to Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker, who demonstrate their newest creation, Waldo. After unsuccessfully deactivating Waldo, Beaker attempts to suck him up with the vacuum Muppet before accidentally sucking up the entire film and letting Waldo escape. Walking through a hallway with Kermit, he introduces Miss Piggy and the Penguin Orchestra for the first musical performance of the show. After the performance goes awry with Miss Piggy kicking out Bean Bunny, who had been trying to help by blowing bubbles towards the audience, Bean runs into Waldo after being fired by Sam the Eagle. After Gonzo walks in and figures out what happens, he assembles Kermit, Fozzie, Sweetums, and Miss Piggy to look for Bean, and a live actor in a Sweetums suit walks in front of the stage, shining his flashlight around before finding an animatronic of Bean in an opera box. Tasking Bean and Waldo at putting together the fireworks for the final number, Kermit shrinks Sam the Eagle's 3-hour performance to a minute and a half as Muppets resembling animatronics from It's a Small World begin to play. As the fireworks begin to go off on the screen, animated firework lights play on the ceiling before the performance begins to fall apart. Sweetums runs back out in front of the stage, urging the Swedish chef to stop the projector as he dumps a bucket of water on the penguins who attempt to shoot a cannon at him. Missing and hitting the projector booth, the projector breaks before Chef tries shooting Waldo, who is flying around the now blank screen. Blowing a hole through the wall, the damage shows the outside of the attraction as a fire truck backs into the theater as Kermit thanks guests for visiting them on their vacation. As Waldo morphs into Mickey Mouse, he finally gets vacuumed up before the curtains close and guests are able to exit the attraction. Opening on May 16th, 1991 in MGM Studios and on opening day at Disney's California Adventure on February 8th, 2001, Muppet Vision 3D was met with critical acclaim, with many praising its humor, animatronics, and theming, while some have been disappointed with how much screen time a new character like Waldo takes up in the film. However, as one of Jim Henson's final projects and the most immersive Muppet experience ever made, Henson's voice truly shines and makes the attraction feel like a classic piece of Muppet media. While the Muppets were eventually purchased by Disney in 2004, the property never never really saw the same heights it had before Henson's death, and many feel as if Disney has squandered the characters. With Muppet Vision being the only permanent Henson attraction at Disney parks, alongside a modified version of Gonzo's Pizza Parlor with Pizza Rizzo being built opposite Muppet Vision in Hollywood studios, many fans feel like the majority of Muppet content made post-acquisition have lacked the magic that Henson brought, aside from 2011's film. While the attraction featured some small updates like a tie-in to 2014's Muppets Most Wanted and updated projection mapping in 2023, the attraction has seen a drop in attendance in the wake of Hollywood studios rebranding towards IP tie-ins and shifting its focus towards what many see as a hodgepodge of attractions without a clear theme. With California Adventure's Muppet Vision closing in 2014 to make way for the Frozen sing-along celebration, and the Muppet Gift Shop closing, the characters have been pushed further and further towards the chopping block. And with the announcement of the upcoming Monsters Inc. land coming to Hollywood studios, many are concerned that Muppet Vision's closure might be coming sooner than later. While it wouldn't be the first beloved attraction to close or be rethemed at a Disney park, Muppet Vision's legacy as Jim Henson's final project, as well as the cultural significance of the show, make it feel like another stab in the heart for the attraction's diehard fans. The Muppets are far from the royalty they once were, but Muppet Vision continues to be one of the most underrated and classic attractions at Hollywood studios. And while the plans revealed for the Monsters Inc. land look amazing, it will be a shame when guests are no longer able to visit the Muppet Theater. Because of the show's 4D effects, actors, and fantastic animatronics, it's an attraction that definitely needs to be experienced in person to achieve the full effect of being immersed in Henson's world. While a character like Waldo is certainly beginning to show the attraction's age, most of Muppet Vision holds up incredibly well, and it remains one of the best 4D films Imagineers have ever created. Let me know down in the comments what you think of Muppet Vision 3D, and thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you'd like to stick around for more theme park lore, and I'll see you in the next video.